From Mamma Mia, welcome to The Spill, your daily pop culture fix. I'm Laura Brodnick.
And I'm Ksenia Lukic. So a list has come out for the top grossing actors of all time. And you might be a little bit surprised at who is at the top. And it is, in fact, a woman, which I'm quite excited about. It is Scarlett Johansson. Now, I want to make clear that we're talking about highest grossing movies, not highest paid. There is a difference, which we'll chat about a little bit later, but it's really interesting because I don't know if people would really expect ScarJo to be topping this list, but since Jurassic World Rebirth has just been released, it's really taken her to the top of this list. So she's grossed over $14.8 billion at the box office, thanks mostly to her part in the Marvel universe, the MCU. So she's obviously played Black Widow in basically every single Marvel movie from, Avengers 1 to her own Black Widow movie. But interestingly, Black Widow, which was her solo movie, only made $379 million in total at the box office. So hindered mostly by the pandemic, but it kind of goes to show that even though she's had a sort of maybe more of a supporting role in these movies, stacked up has made her very, very, very successful in terms of grossing. Again, that doesn't necessarily reflect in her paycheck, but I thought it would be interesting to go into some of the other top 10 just to kind of get a bit of an idea. Now, it's not going to surprise anybody that it's mostly men and it's mostly people in the MCU universe.
Yes, that is not surprising.
Okay, so at number 10, we have Chris Evans. 9, The Rock. 8, Vin Diesel. That would probably be
all
from
the Fast and Furious
Furious. 7, Chris Hemsworth. 6, Tom Cruise. 5, Chris Pratt. 4, Zoe Saldana.
Yes, not at all surprising when you look at the fact that she's mostly a franchise blockbuster actress.
Yeah, so, we've got Guardians of the Galaxy. She was in Star Trek and, of course, Avatar. So that is going to really help bring her up. But she's the only other woman in the list. Number 3 is Robert Downey Jr., and I don't think you will guess number 2.
Samuel L. Jackson?
Oh. Okay.
I think I'm the wrong person to ask that because wasn't
I
he previously? That's because he's in pretty much every Marvel movie.
Yes.
That's his whole thing, is that he's the connecting tissue between all of these movies, and because all of those movies are the highest grossing, that makes a lot of sense.
No, okay, so
but you try that at parties, that'll work for someone else.
You ruined it for me.
Sorry.
But it is very interesting. It's all franchises. It kind of just goes to show that this is why Hollywood keeps churning out these big blockbuster action movies, because it's clearly what sells at the box office. But well done, ScarJo. It'll be interesting though, because Black Widow, spoiler alert, because Black Widow dies at the end of Infinity War. It'd be interesting if she kind of gets knocked off of that.
Yeah, looking at this news yesterday when it broke, some people were surprised about it, but coming off the back of a huge franchise like that, where she not only had the paycheck from the Marvel movies, but she also had a percentage of the box office earnings for the movies, which is huge, which is why she sued Marvel and Disney for the Black Widow release. Do you remember that? Because it was only meant to be a theater release in her contract, and because of the pandemic, they put it onto streaming very early. Yes, and so that obviously cut the box office in half, and she sued them for that. But she's still doing okay with the Jurassic Park money. It's kind of it's interesting because a lot of people have been having that question of is it super empowering that it's a woman, or does it feel, because the list is mostly men and also it's a rich white woman in Hollywood, is that interesting at all?
I think it's interesting. ScarJo has been around for a long time. She is a staple in Hollywood, and despite the backlash from the Jurassic Park Rebirth movies in this particular office.
Yeah, I think it's mostly been in this office, and it's doing so well everywhere else.
Yeah, in the group chats, it doesn't seem to be doing too well, but it's still going to bring in those big dollars, and Universal know that because this is such a huge franchise for them.
Yeah.
But just as a bit of a comparison, I thought we could go back and have a look at the highest paid actors, so highest paid. Now, I think we all know who number 1 is. Yes?
Number one?
Number 1.
I don't even think I know that. In terms of men, do you think?
This is a multi-sex list.
Oh, well, I know Sandra Bullock is the highest paid actress for a single movie for Gravity, for her paycheck for that.
Yeah.
But going down the rest of the list, I don't know who's 100% number one.
Yeah, so we're looking at the Forbes highest paid actors of 2024. So let's kind of just go to a couple of people who number 8 is Nicole Kidman, $31 million. George Clooney, 31. Jerry Seinfeld. Number 3, Kevin Hart at 81 million. Number 2, Ryan Reynolds at 85 million. And number 1 is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson at $88 million.
I gotta say, I find it less interesting, kind of this like tabling of who's made the most, and more interesting kind of like the backstories around it. Because at the end of the day, millionaires getting paid millionaire salaries, I don't think for movies isn't that super interesting. With the Scarlett thing, it's like it might have been empowering a few years ago. Now I just find it only because her name's attached to so many franchises.
Yeah.
What I find more interesting is the names who are creeping up the list for different things. So like Margot Robbie has been solidly moving up the list and she's in the top now. But that's because she gets paid a huge amount for some of her roles, but mostly because she produces like Barbie and that sort of thing, which obviously skewers the list. And also Charlize Theron being so far up the list, even though she hasn't had one of those really big blockbusters or really like Oscar-worthy movies for a while. It's like a steady stream of work over many years. Yeah,
I think one of the key things is like if you want to be successful in Hollywood, get into like the MCU or a big franchise, and also get yourself some of the profits off the box office.
Yeah.
Like that's what Robbie Downey Jr. did in...
I
know, that's what he did with Iron Man, right at the beginning of the sort of explosion of the MCU universe, and that's why he was so successful with these movies.
I know, but I don't want one of those people who thinks the Marvel movies are bland. Like some of them are my favorite movies, but I do find this way of looking at it in terms of like, I'll make this many franchises and I'll put my name on the box office for this. I guess for some people like Scarlett Johansson and Margot Robbie.
You know.
Yeah. No, I know, but that's kind of like, that's like, it's become a business making thing rather than like kind of attaching themselves like interesting projects. But I guess then you have someone like a Margot Robbie who says that she'll wear like a fancy gown and get paid $1 million so that she can go and make a lower budget movie. So anyway, congrats to Scarlett Johansson. Suing Disney really worked for her.
Well, I mean, she's not going to see like that billions of dollars, but still, you know, it made the headlines and here we are. I don't know about you, Laura, but I am a massive tennis fan, and
but I enjoy any sport where you can kind of sit in the shade and drink, which is, I assume, what you do at the tennis.
Well, you know, there's a couple of really big tournaments, and the biggest one, as we all know, is Wimbledon, one of the most famous. Mm-hmm. Now, not only is the tennis very interesting, but the star spotting is always...
This is where you've got me. I'm into this.
Oh, come on. Like, looking in the stands at every single tournament is always part of the fun. Mm-hmm. Now, we have had some great star spotting at this year's Wimbledon, as well as a relationship hard launch that we're going to get into a little bit later. But the first thing I want to talk about is a couple of my favorite celeb sightings. Mm-hmm. Now, I first want to preface this by saying, if you don't know, in these kind of big tournaments, a lot of the time they'll have big sponsors, right? Mm-hmm. Kind of like in, you know, Melbourne Cup, we've got our different marquees in the birdcage, and they're sponsored by different places, and they bring in lots of different celebrities. So at Wimbledon this year, kind of the biggest sponsor was Ralph Lauren. Mm-hmm. So they brought in a lot of really big stars, including Maud Apatow, Poppy Delevingne. We had Nick Jonas and Priyanka Chopra. We had Olivia Rodrigo and Louis Partridge. How cute did Olivia... Have you seen the photos of Olivia Rodrigo in her little outfit?
No. And they're very loved. Also, they're very loved up. And there's one point where they're having a conversation in the stand and he's like, just hold my hand while we keep talking. Like, you can see him mouth that, and then they hold hands and keep talking. And I was like, I know the bar's low, but it's really cute.
If you want to go and have a look at like the Ralph Lauren Instagram page, you can see like most of the stars.
Oh, they got their money's worth, that's for sure.
They definitely got their money's worth. They dressed everyone. They did these beautiful portraits of everyone. But I think probably the one everyone is most excited about is Andrew Garfield and Monica Barbaro hard launching their relationship. They were very, very loved up in the stands.
Yes. This was, for fans of this relationship, which I do count myself among them, this has been kind of bubbling away in like the background of photos and things since the end of last year when People magazine first reported that they were together. So that also coincided with Monica Barbaro, who'd been in the industry for decades. I actually remember like over a decade ago, I went to Canada for a film trip and she was on the TV show that I was there for, and she wasn't working that day because she was like 10th on the call list, but she and I sat in this tent together all day on this blueberry farm in Canada for this TV show, and she said that she just was coming on her days off to watch to try and like learn the business a bit more.
Oh, I love
and
that.
she was like really wanting to be an actress, and I was like, I feel like you will be. Anyway, since then she's been in Top Gun Maverick.
Well, I mean, but like, let's just
yeah,
if she's not a massively well-known name, obviously since the Oscars this year she has been. So she was nominated for her role as Joan Baez in A Complete Unknown across from Timothée Chalamet. So that really kind of blew her up.
Blew her up. And coming off the back of Top Gun Maverick, I think that was her first kind of big blockbuster role. That blew her up. She came into this movie, got an Oscar nomination, was killing on the red carpet. I think that's when people became really invested in her. And not long after that, she was linked to Andrew Garfield. So there was a few pap shots of them walking through the streets. There's really cute photos of him waiting for her, like after like the Oscar parties and the Met Ball parties. But this is the first time they've been at a very public event together. And just to talk about why people are losing their minds over these photos, it's the photos of them walking into Wimbledon and he's in the beautiful white suit and he's looking so cute and they're holding hands, and she's wearing like, she's very like a classy dresser, but it's like a dress that's like a see-through white almost.
Yeah, it's
but
so,
in a classy way.
Yeah, so again, both dressed by Ralph Lauren.
Yeah.
I swear I'm not sponsored by them.
Yeah.
I just like,
but we would love to be.
It is beautiful. They look gorgeous. They're both in all white.
Yeah.
Andrew Garfield has this like little, tied up sweater around his neck.
Yeah.
Monica's wearing, it's like a poplin. So it's like a really light cotton, which
I love
can
how in-depth
be,
we're getting on this.
Well, I mean, I love a poplin dress. It's very Wimbledon. White is very Wimbledon. But yeah, it's a bit sort of saucy, but demure saucy.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, they're such almost nothing photos, but I think because people have just been wanting to see them together for so long and seeing them kind of, also the hand holding and the smiling and there's like a brief little kiss. I don't know what it is about the tennis that brings out a bit of romance and celebrities, but this is where we got the first videos and photos, remember like a few years ago, of Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet, who were in the stands at the tennis. I couldn't tell you which event it was. Maybe it was Wimbledon because I don't follow the tennis circuit, but it was them, like it was, and also I guess because they can't move and the camera is so fully on them, so it's not like they're ducking in and out of events as how we would normally see them through paparazzi photos. So we had Timothy and Kylie like pashing away. We've had videos of Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift pashing away in the stands in a way that they would never do like when they're doing their pap walks on the street. I
think as well a big part of it is because they're in a big stadium and all of the paps, photographers and stuff are probably in the media pit. It's not as obvious that they're being photographed. So I'm sure they're aware that they're going to be photographed because they're celebrities. A lot of them are sitting in the royal box, which is, where all the celebs are. But it's kind of a little bit less in your face. So they're probably less aware of it. It's probably easier to forget.
Yeah.
But they were actually watching. Do you want to know which game they were watching?
Sure.
Just for fun.
I'm not probably not going to know these names, but sure.
Okay, so Britain's Sonay Kartal and Russia's Anastasia. I should know this because I'm Serbian and I should be able to pronounce this. Okay. Pavlyuchenkova.
I mean, that's definitely better than I would have done. And I should say, I know other women love tennis. It's just a me situation.
I also tennis. How can you not like tennis?
No, I know. I hate that sometimes I feed into that stereotype of women not liking sport. I just want to be clear, it's a me thing, not like a women thing. But I feel also a little bit of guilt over how much people are fangirling over these Andrew and Monica photos, only because it's such a stark difference to how they treated his last public girlfriend. We've had one photo of Monica and Andrew walking into Wimbledon looking all loved up, and everyone's like, they're so beautiful together. I love them. What a match made in heaven. Whereas his last girlfriend, are you across this? Dr. Kate Thomas, who he was papped a lot with. They were together for a while. It's hard to pick the timeline, fine because he never talks about his relationships, and she did a little bit, Dr. Kate, when they were together. But they were photographed together for like over a year. And she got so much hate, this woman, because people thought she was too ugly to date Andrew Garfield. And she was so, because she has a podcast and stuff, she's like a spiritual healer and advisor and all these things, and she's like written a lot of different things, and she has a podcast, and she said that she was so aware the fact that forums, articles, TikTok videos, from the moment she went public with Andrew Garfield, everyone was ripping this woman apart for being too ugly to be with him, to the point where, because she's a practicing witch, which is what she says, and that's her thing. And I don't want to anger her.
No. I have done a whole deep dive on. Yeah. I actually listened to this podcast on witches, and it was like a 10-part series on.
Yeah, now you're speaking my language.
Like interviewing all of these different witches, and what it was like fascinating. Yeah, so her identifying as a witch does not shock me.
No, and that's what. And she said like it's more of like it's a link to her spirituality and all these things. Anyway. Then she was accused of casting a love spell on Andrew Garfield and making him fall in love with her, because people are like, there's no way this handsome, rich, successful actor is dating, I should say, a very nice looking woman, but they're like dating this normie, ugly woman, to the point where she had to put out a statement saying that she would never use her powers in that way. It's important to note that she didn't say she couldn't. She said she would never. And I don't know why they broke up. Like, obviously, I don't know these people, but I do believe that maybe the public intense hatred against her might have played a part. And I just think it's so different now. We've seen these photos of him and Monica, and because she is a movie star that people think is worthy of him, that everyone's fawning over them. Like, I do like them together, but it's a very stark difference.
Yeah, I completely, and I think we see that a lot when celebrities date quote unquote normies. You know, we see it sometimes where people are willing to bring them in, but, you know, anytime you see a celebrity dating, you know, someone in production or someone who's not in the industry as an A-lister or even as an up-and-comer or celebrity, they don't like it. It's like, it's almost like audiences want to see two famous people together.
Yeah.
Because then they can know both of their lives, whereas when it's one quote unquote normie, you don't really know what's going on in their life, and you can't dissect them. They don't feel as available to us.
Yeah. And I also think it's can be a visual thing, and it also, I think maybe we're a little bit looser on men. Like if Taylor Swift was like dating a normie guy, but they was super hot, and people could concoct this fantasy about her dating like a handyman or something like that, or a paramedic or something, I feel like there'd be like a
swamp man,
or a swamp man. See, again, everyone's invested in that love story. Lana Del Rey, if you missed our recent episode, as am I. But I think just it was something about this woman daring to step out, not looking like a Hollywood star, that just angered people to an intense level that I haven't seen before. So as much as I'm loving this Andrew and Monica hard launch, I do think we all just need to take a look at ourselves, or Dr. Kate's going to just put a spell on you.
And don't be like, I think this whole labeling her as a witch is a bad thing is like...
No, she self-identifies as a witch.
No, that's the thing. Like, listen to this podcast. It's so fascinating. I'll show you after. I love witches.
Me too.